Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Kung Fu. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Immediately picking up after the previous episode, we have Evan finding Nikki, and Nikki not wanting anyone to, know what happened. Because obviously it's if Ryan, if she goes to the hospital, there's going to be a lot of questions. Ryan looks after her, there's going to be a lot of questions. She doesn't want anyone to know, so she leaves with Evan, texting Henry, I'm sorry, I lost the dagger. Jilan got it, and she won. So, but, obviously, she's also struggling with what she heard from Jilan, Pei Ling murdered their father, and it's I thought, at the very least, I was under the assumption I knew my master so well, and now it's now I don't. It brings everything into question because, and she brings it up later on, she gave her, Pei Ling was her everything for those 3 years. It's when she was kind of away from her family, you gave me purpose, you put me on a path, and all of that's being brought into question now that I'm questioning you. Were you who I thought you were? You murdered your own father. And that's the most heartbreaking thing is for her, is I can never know the truth because you're not here to give me answers. I don't know whether Jilan's lying to me. But why would she? It would explain why she'd go through the trouble of murdering her own sister. But it's also, who can I ever get the truth from? I will never get the entire story because, Pei Ling's gone. It's also interesting, too, that the place that Evan ended up taking her was a place that was significant to them. It'd be a place that they, escaped from their parents with. Just kind of getting away from their parents is a place they'd go to. And while he's kind of, taking care of her, wound and everything, it's oh, you can feel it, and it's just oh boy, what about you and Henry? What about him and Sabine? But it's kind of yeah, I should get back to Sabine. It's oh, is she still at the museum? It's no, she left her, right? But I don't want to mention, oh yeah, she left her because she kind of felt uncomfortable. The fact is that you're spending so much time with your ex, and she's trying to be cool about it, But, yeah, obviously, once again, she confronts her master in her head, being you're not real. The fact of the matter is, I'm tired of your guidance. I'm tired of this mission. This mission I'm on is yours to begin with, so I'm done with it all. She's just done. It's just because she took up this mission because she wanted to, get justice for her master. But if her master's this murderer, it's almost what? I'm not getting justice. I'm not saying she's saying that her master deserved it, but now she's just confused right now. So, obviously, Ryan checks her out, but it's yeah, you're a little bruised and everything, so it's it needs time to heal, so no training, no fighting, no nothing, And she reluctantly accepts, but they're also bringing up the fact is, right, Henry wants to talk to you, he hasn't been able to talk to you since last night. So, Nikki tells him, she's sorry, but it's just with everything that's going on. But obviously, Henry presents kind of a new case for them. It turns out this dude, Kevin, his sister Phoebe, is joining this American, training dojo of sorts. And the Master Drake, is basically putting her in a position where it's oh, I'm training you, but also I'm going to need you to keep paying these exuberant fees to the point that she, basically sold so much of her stuff. She cut ties with her family. And so it's interesting, just at the time that Nikki's in a free fall when it comes to how she feels about her own Shifu, at that moment, she's getting a case about a Shifu who's potentially taking advantage of his students because they're getting hurt. There's plenty that are showing up in, ERs with broken bones and bruises. So, what's going on in this case? Especially because Nikki, understands, why, it's Kevin has an outside perspective from it, but for Nikki, it's right, your Shifu is kind of your everything. They're your guiding light, so you're going to believe them amongst anything, so you're not going to be as quick to kind of turn away from them. So they got to find other means. So Nikki goes and visits with them, and it turns out that basically there's this high-ranking thing. This, I forgot what the name for it was, but it's this high ranking, what you kind of reach the top mark and only so few have reached it. It's kind of almost the pinnacle of Kung Fu. It's becoming a divine blade in the 8 Lees, 1 Blade School. If you play Trails of Cold Steel, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of similar in that regard. If you haven't, that means absolutely nothing, but like I said, it's just the top of your field, essentially, when it comes, in this particular case of Kung Fu. But, obviously, Nikki kind of sees through him a little bit because for her, it's I forgot what she was kind of saying, that basically Kung Fu isn't meant to be used in that way. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be used in that way. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be used in that way. 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 It's a means of like, I forgot where his exact wording were, and I'm going to butcher the paraphrasing of it, but I think it was kind of more like along the lines of like kind of following your own path. It's kind of what Kung Fu is supposed to lead you down. It isn't just supposed to be used as just kind of this violent like power thing of like, you know, it isn't meant for that. So I didn't talk about it, but honestly, like, losing to Jilan is also another aspect to why it shook her, because it kind of shook her confidence, because it's like, right, she thought when she crossed paths with Jilan again, it was like, no, I'm going to get justice for my master, and it's going to be all over, but she lost pretty badly. Jilan, like, had the advantage most of the fight. It was pretty one-sided, so that's enough to kind of shake her, but, obviously, like, Master Drake is like, oh, there's going to be this awesome fight, like, oh, you being from actually training in China at a Shaolin temple, like, it would be great to, like, kind of show you, like, what we're all about with, like, kind of, like, a little bit of a bout. And, Nikki agrees. And obviously, like, Althea hacks into everything and finds out that basically he's doing basically illegal pay-per-views of their fight. There's no gears, no rules, hence why a lot of these fighters are ended up injured. And it's like, right, the fighters don't even know that, like, they're being, like, profited off of, that he's making money, because, like, with the camera angles, like, they probably don't know. And so the entire squad, Ryan, Althea, Nikki, Evan, and Henry, are all working together to try and expose him. Once again, I guess this is the squad, this is the team and everything. Everybody that's in the know about, well, everything. And so they want to expose him, but, Nikki's saying, like, she could use this as an opportunity. Like, obviously, when she gets in the bout, it's like Althea will have enough time to hack into stuff, because basically they have to find where the servers actually are, because they're off site where, like, all this is being streamed through and everything, and kind of expose Drake, because at the very least they can take the operation down, and eventually, like, everything can be looked into and eventually tied back to Drake in that regard. But Nikki's gonna have to show up, which is like, no, you're supposed to not fight. And it's like, but Nikki's like, at the very least, if I do this, I won't have to, maybe I won't have to fight. But it turns out, I was thinking the person she was going to end up fighting would have been Phoebe. Turns out it's not. Master Drake himself, which even Henry's like, why is that? It's like, yeah, because I kind of disrespected, I threatened his control over his students, and so he wants to pay me back for it. For making him kind of look small in front of his students. So, it turns into a bout between them, which obviously Nikki is able to hold her own. It does seem like she has a little bit of an advantage, but obviously he strikes her and it's like she's still wounded. So, but in that moment she sees Pei Ling, and I love that message of like, don't look to me as like, don't say like, oh, my I was a good Shifu because of like because of my skills or my teaching. Like, you will be an example of whether or not I was a good Shifu, because you being who you are, whether or not are you still running, are you willing to face your fears? Who you become will determine, and I like that. I like that messaging of like, if whatever I was able to do to help you grow, if you're able to grow and who you become at the end of the day, like if you're able to rise and become kind of a star in your own right, that means you can shine brightly. Then obviously I'm paraphrasing there, but it's like that will be enough to let me know, like, it'll be proof that maybe I did help you along the way, which obviously that scene is so important considering Pei Ling's side of the story we got this episode, which we'll get to soon enough. And because of that, Nikki kind of rises up and proceeds to kick Master Drake's ass. That fucking like corkscrew thing at the end was sick. I don't know if I call it a corkscrew. I don't know what you would necessarily call that technique, but like the way she jumped in the air and like twisted while she was, I call that a corkscrew kick. It was pretty dope, and it's just like, oh man. In that moment too, because she put like Phoebe and the rest of the students kind of walk away. It's not like no claps for the celebration. It's like, I guess for all of them, it's like, oh, our master's supposed to be unbeatable. And I'm just surprised, like after the battle was over, everyone's just walking away. I'm like, oh. And just Phoebe kind of looks disappointed, because I guess for her it was a situation. Well, I don't know whether at that, because it didn't seem like, oh no, like everything's like, oh, like what they're looking into, like all this stuff got exposed at that moment. It didn't seem like it. That seemed like it happened after the fact. So him getting defeated was more so like, I guess, like, oh, she thought her master was everything, and it's like, right, I'm striving for this thing, and because like, oh, he's at the pinnacle of everything, and despite all his teachings and everything, he got beat by Nikki, so it kind of made her feel like maybe this isn't the way, like maybe I'm not getting from this what I thought I could. because she had talked about it, and like obviously there's parallels, and Nikki had brought that up. It's like, right, she hasn't, like, her parents don't like for Phoebe, it's like her parents didn't respect her choices. Obviously Nikki knows something on that part, but also it's like after leaving the military, she was looking for something, like she was kind of filling that void to a certain extent, and Nikki kind of did the same thing. Like there was struggles in her own life, and she needed to kind of find a new path to kind of fill the void a little too. So there are definitely parallels you could draw between their lives, and maybe she kind of recognized that, and seeing Nikki kind of come out on top made her go, because Nikki was like, you should call your brother, so it seems like things are kind of on their way to getting repaired on that regard. Obviously the servers got raided, and it's only a matter of time till Master Drake gets exposed. So but for Nikki, at the end of the day, it's like, I may never know the truth about my master, but she was a good master, and the fact is, her mission is still my mission. The fact is, I am going to stop Jilan. Just kind of like thinking about her master's guidance. And I think it was nice because, like, obviously, despite her, like, telling Jilan, go away, I don't need you, like, Jilan pops up throughout the episode, but especially there during the fight against Master Drake, her just kind of not saying anything, but just kind of nodding there, and that's when Nikki thought back to that moment. So, but sadly, things between her and Henry on pause, because it's like, right, I know things were crazy that night, but you went off with Evan and you didn't even tell me where you were. Like, the fact is, we're kind of supposed to be in this together. I thought we were at a certain point, but it's like, do you still have feelings for Evan? And if you do, it's okay, but I just need to put this on pause. And so there's a lot about her life in totality Nikki needs to figure out, especially if things get interesting, because, like, her mom starts looking into something like, like, are you okay? What happened to your head? It's like, no, I'm good, Mom. Are you going out somewhere? Don't worry about it. It's fine, Mom. I'm just going to be with Althea. But then, like, that reveal at the end was insane. I thought that was great, where her mom was like, I know, like, I saw you. And it's like, oh, she's like, you followed me? And it's like, yeah. That conversation didn't go the way I thought it was. Like, her mom was like, you didn't just train. You're a warrior. And it's like, she's like, that's what I was afraid of. And it's like, wait, where are we going with this? It's like, basically, her family lineage ties back to the first, like, female warrior, this particular warrior. And then she starts talking about, like, a sword that's supposed to be their birthright. I was like, wait, are we talking about the same sword that, like, it's like, yeah, there's a guardian family of it. I was like, wait, what? That's crazy to think about. And so basically, this also gives us a little, like, understanding of Mei Li, like, why she is the way she is with Nikki. That basically it's supposed to be, like, once in a generation, like, a warrior is supposed to rise, and she was scared it was going to be Nikki. Because she's like, ever since seeing Nikki grow up, everything she's ever gravitated to, who she is. You scraped your knee, you never cried. You always stuck up for people trying to do the right thing. You fought the bullies. Althea did this, and you wanted to do karate. And so everything she's done, like, the reason why she's always been so hard on Nikki and trying to dictate so much of Nikki's life is because she's trying to move Nikki away from that. Because she lost her own sister, which is interesting, because obviously the whole thing with Jilan and Pei Ling, and obviously it seems like there was a little, not the same exact thing, but there was a somewhat similar dynamic between Mei Li and her sister. So I was like, whoa, this is getting crazy, because it's like, her sister became obsessed with the sword and died because of it. Like, I don't remember if she specifically said how her sister died. I mean, granted, she lied to her and said, like, oh yeah, like, when she was younger, it's like, yeah, I told you that my sister died when she was young of tuberculosis. But it's like, nope. Like, and for Nikki, it's like, wait, because now it's like, wait, so much of my life has been a lie. From when you spent my entire life lying to me, but also it's like, I've always been trying to find a path that's right for me. I'm trying to figure myself out, and you've basically stopped me every step of the way. You knew what my life held in front of me, but for her, it's like, I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to make the same mistakes as my sister, but it's my life. It's my mistakes to make, because that's the thing. Through mistakes, people are allowed to grow. She never gave Nikki a chance to grow. It's like, I mean, who knows where I could be, what I could be. Like, that's why everything always felt off. Especially for Nikki, that's always caused so much animosity between her and her mom. That's why they have such a complicated relationship. But also, it's like, probably for Nikki, it's like, I've always, like, that's why she went to the temple, the Shaolin Temple in China in the first place. It's because it's like she wanted to find herself. It's like she's been struggling more recently with her sense of self, and now we find at the core of it's been there her entire life. The reason why she's kind of felt like that, and her mom just only agitated those feelings even more, I'm sure. So it's understandable why she'd feel the way she did. But once again, it's just destiny, providence, who knows? But her ending up in Pei Ling's shell, it makes you wonder, did she know about Nikki? Like, could that have been more secrets that Pei Ling knew that she just didn't tell Nikki? Like, she knew where, like, maybe she looked into Nikki and found out. I mean, we don't know what Pei Ling's sources could have been. Like, maybe she knew immediately. It's like, how did that situation come about where it's like this guardian family looks after their soul, but it's kind of their birthright? Like, you know. And that's also the thing, too, like, someone becoming so obsessed looking for it. It's like, well, Jilan, like, obviously things don't end great for those obsessed looking for it, so maybe history will kind of repeat itself in that regard. I don't know. It presents a lot of interesting things. It starts sending my mind in a spiral about the whole thing with the sword and it burning marks into her hand, because I'm like, okay, that was kind of my thing of like, well, what was that about? Like, part of me, I had written someone about that last episode being like, oh, maybe it's like a message from Pei Ling, like kind of like a last effort message, or I wasn't sure what to interpret that as. Now my mind is like, because at first you're like, well, did it do that because she was unworthy? But then part of me starts to think maybe it did that because she was worthy, because obviously whatever that message is, it's connected to all 8 weapons and stuff like that. So her being like this from this bloodline of a great warrior, maybe it was saying like, you are worthy, just not yet. This is your destiny, but you have to reach a certain point. Let's bring it back to Kingdom Hearts, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, because I love to. If you've never played Kingdom Hearts, this won't matter to you. It won't mean as much. But basically, there are 2 characters. Spoilers for Kingdom Hearts. There's Riku and Sora. Riku was the original Keyblade Master, but he chose darkness. And so he kind of let the darkness creep into his heart. So the Keyblade, instead of going to, it's this mystical weapon that basically chooses someone of good heart. It was supposed to go to Riku, but it went through Sora. Sora goes throughout the entire adventures of Kingdom Hearts, and at the very end of it, Riku takes the Keyblade from him because it's like, no, it's rightfully mine. It chose me from the beginning, and now it's returning to its rightful owner. But Sora's like, I fought my entire way here with the Keyblade. He's like, you were just the delivery boy. Like, I'm wondering if it's kind of something in that similar vein where it's like, it's kind of sticking with Jilan for now, but honestly, it is waiting for Nikki to rise up to become who she's destined to be, and then become the true owner of this sword type of thing. Like, I'm wondering it's kind of in that vein, like, her heart and her mind and her spirit, like, maybe, like, every aspect of her has to be in unison. Like, she's almost like the Avatar going in, like, was that just simply called Avatar mode? I believe it was. Where like basically you find like this like equilibrium, this balance, and maybe the sword is waiting for her to get to that point before it reveals itself to her. Maybe this journey that's imprinted on her head, like the message and everything, this mission, at the end of it, she will become who she's meant to be. That's where my mind is with this. I know that's a mouthful, that's a lot, especially when I'm throwing out the Kingdom Hearts stuff, and people listening to this probably have no context for what I was saying, so it might not mean as much. But like I said, that's where my mind is with that. So, especially when we tie in the whole thing, which we finally got insight into, like, the whole Pei Ling situation. Obviously, Jilan returned home after years. It turns out, I was about to say, oh, you haven't been here since you were a kid. It's like, no, she's been back pretty frequently. It seems like she comes back, like, especially on her dad's birthday, but it seems like the last time she was here was 2 years ago. No, it was, yeah, that would, wait, when would it? Yeah, I don't know why that stopped me for a second. Like, yeah, so, but basically from when they were younger, like, obviously, Jilan was injured, but I guess they didn't have the money necessary to pay for any treatment, but her dad was saying, like, no, I'm gonna find a way to find us, like, a better fortune, turn our lives around. Obviously, Pei Ling had to be the one to kind of look after the family, because she felt like, I think it's like, without their mother around, which they didn't really go into that too much, it's like, I have to be the one to kind of look after my sister because my dad isn't. I think it might be the thing of like, her dad was always looking for a means to kind of turn things around. Maybe it was a little bit of a gambling thing, or maybe it's just just being unfortunate and just life not working out the way. I feel like it leans more that way because they've never presented anything so far to suggest like he gambled away their money or anything like that. It just seems like life was unfortunate to them. But obviously comes a conversation where like Jilan woke up to hear Pei Ling and her dad arguing because he wants to sell the sword, but Pei Ling is like, no, this is our legacy. This was mom's legacy. And he was like, but yes, that was your mom's thing, but it's like, this is going to be used to take care of your sister. I could get her the treatment. It's like, no, what are you talking about? Now you care about it? You're the one that was saying like, oh, she didn't need any medicine and stuff like that she's strong, right? And it's like, I'm just trying to take care of you. And it's like, it's hard to say what was in their father's heart. Maybe it was a thing of, I'm legitimately looking after my kids. Your mom isn't around anymore, so I'm going to cast this aside. But that's also probably why it hit so hard for Pei-Ling, because it's like, no, this is mom's legacy. This is our legacy that mom left with us. It's like a last piece they had to hold on to their mom, is this connection to her through this legacy of being guardians of this sword. So, but through a struggle with it, she accidentally killed her father. It was like, oh, she didn't murder her dad on purpose, which Jilan kind of made it seem like that was the case. It's like, no, it was a pure accident, which I figured that obviously, like, there was definitely going to be more to the story. I figured as much. But obviously, like, you know, Pei-Ling tried to get her sister to come with her, but obviously Jilan was kind of shocked and everything. And so was Pei-Ling. Like, it just happened so fast, and it's like, I can't let Mr. Tan get this sword. It's too important. We're not supposed to give it away. And so she abandoned her sister. She tried to get her to come along, which she justifies it later on. I tried to get you to come, but you didn't. But also, it's like, she's a child. You could have grabbed her. You could have forcefully brought her along, but maybe in her own way, Pei-Ling was just, you know, she was a scared kid her own right. Like, we don't know how old she is, but I'm assuming she was like probably like a late teenager. It's like, she was still a kid herself. She was scared. Like, you know, she just murdered her father. It's just like, I didn't mean, it wasn't an accident, but it's still like the guilt over everything. She left. And we see that 2 years ago, she came back to, she returned to their home to visit her sister, like, who popped in from time to time. It's like, I know you come to visit uncle, so I came here to see you. Like, she's trying to make amends, but it's like, you abandoned me. But it's like, I didn't mean to. You know, once again, she was scared. And obviously, she's looking at her sister as like, you've grown pretty and strong, but you've also grown hard. Considering those circumstances, we don't know everything Jilan went through, getting what the circumstances were like, because their uncle seems to have taken care of her, but it's like, considering the trauma of that young age of like, oh, your sister, who you most likely care about and look up to, murdered your dad once again by accident, but it's like your entire world came flipped upside down because she also abandoned you. That was another thing for Pei-Ling. It's like, her guilt could never make her come back, but she's like, I should have come back to you, but it's just like, I couldn't take the chance Mr. Tan would come and take the sword. But now it's like, protecting the sword is her life, and in that moment Jilan's like, give me the sword, because you said that it's your life, right? Well, you took a life, so maybe in my turn I'm going to take your life, which I guess that kind of still came full circle with her actually, in more ways than one, because she took the sword, which was Pei-Ling's life, and she literally took that sword and took Pei-Ling's life with it. So there's level upon levels of just not irony, but poetic messaging behind that action, you know? Despite everything, you know, Pei-Ling does tell her sister, like, I love you, like, you know, despite my mistakes and everything. And I love how we tie back to, like, oh, her going back from her trip and being there with Nikki, and obviously that message, how it influenced Nikki. Like, Nikki will never know the context of that conversation she had with her master that day, the weight, and, you know, because Pei-Ling was like, kind of like, don't look up to me like it's just this great person. Like, for her, it's like, she hopes to kind of guide people in the right direction, but it's like, also like, but I've made my mistakes. Like, how do I know I'm not leading you all down the wrong path, you know? I thought that was such cool, and I thought that was such a great insight into understanding everything with Pei-Ling. Obviously, present day, Jilan remembers seeing the message on Nikki, the things on Nikki's hand, and it's because she saw her father writing a book, because she recognized certain symbols from when she was a kid. So she's trying to find it again, and she's talking to her uncle, but it turns out, for one, Pei-Ling came to him like sometime before she disappeared after killing their dad, and was like, please take care of my sister, even sent money from time to time, which Jilan immediately takes it as well, just as Nikki's finding out her entire life has been a lie, Jilan kind of does as well. Once again, there are parallels between like the different paths you can go down, like what Jilan ended up becoming versus who Nikki ended up becoming. So it is interesting what lies kind of led down to that. But it's like, you know, both situations, whether it's Jilan's uncle or whether it's Mei Li, you know, both lying to protect the people that they care about in their own rights. But for Jilan, she looked at it as an ultimate betrayal of like, right, you were in contact with my sister the entire time. That's most likely how Pei-Ling knew that where Jilan would be. they didn't ever really get into it too much about like what she actually does for a living. They were kind of getting into it. It sounds like she does some like high level business, which I'm like, that's what she actually said at the last episode about what she does might not actually be 100% BS. Like before she was on this mission, that's probably what she actually did for a living, because it seems like it seems like she's financing all of this. She has been for the past like 2 years, it seems, because this mission only came to her 2 years ago, with Pei Ling being like about the sword and everything. So it seems like that jump started this mission for her to get revenge against her sister. Like, I guess the sword had to be the starting off point, because that's the only weapon she was aware of where it was. It's just interesting. I wonder at what point in that 2 years was there something else that shifted in that, or was she already just preparing all the money and resources necessary to do this? You know, attack the temple and everything and kill her sister. Who knows? But like I said, finding out, you know, her life was a lie. Because for her, she just, in her own mind, it's like, my sister just did that to alleviate her own guilt. There's nothing Pei Ling can ever do to ever get rid of that guilt. But Jilan is just so angry. She's been angry ever since she was a little girl. Understandably so, but that anger has driven her the entire time. And like, so she's not willing to look at it as like, oh, my sister was trying to look after me in her own way. Like, she can't see it from that perspective. All she can, she's blinded by her anger. So she threatens her uncle, like, I killed my sister, I will kill you too. So she has the book that translates the symbols and stuff like that, because he was beginning to translate, but it's like, okay, so where's the scroll at? And it's like, well, I sold it years ago to Mr. Tan. So she visits one of Tan's children and is offering to help him. It's like, right, your dad's looking to get all 8 weapons and do his thing, right? Well, it's my mission too. We can work together. So I'm assuming it's more of a thing of like, I'm gonna work with you, and yeah, your dad's kind of doing his own thing, but like, it's probably that thing of, don't you want to get from underneath your father's shadow? Help me and you become more powerful than your father. You can get to everything before him. We can do it. And then, you know, and I mean me, as in, we will get there together, and then ultimately I'll stab you in the back and claim everything for myself. Oops. I believe that's where we're going with this. We'll ultimately have to wait and see, but I'm really interested to see where things take us going forward from here. Jin walking in, giving the keys to Nikki and telling Mei Li, like, what have you done? Like, I wonder, has he known the entire time? As also, does that mean he's been a liar? Or is it more so like, is it something that she's lied to the entire, you know? Because there is that preview, like we see in the promotional material, she's like, what you've brought into our lives. I figured it was about Nikki, but I didn't know, like, wait, now it makes you wonder what the context for that is. You know, I think we're going to get that context soon enough about, like, oh, like, you know, Jilan being in their lives and everything, probably because now the entire truth is going to come out. Now the kids are going to find out, like, wait, mom, wait, what? You know, because it's also like, wait, this says all this about Nikki, but what about us? You know, what's our part? You kind of lied about us as well, you know? This was always Nikki's path, so obviously it's a little more personal for Nikki, but it does open up some questions about, you know, what else Mei Li has been lying about. So I'm really, really interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good